Hi, I'm Penny Cook. I'm from South Australia.
Hi, I'm Deb Mann. I'm an Aboriginal woman from Queensland, Central Queensland. When I'm asked where I'm from, I find it often quite tricky to answer because my grandmothers have two different versions. One says I'm freshwater, one says I'm saltwater, and so it took me a long time to realise that actually the river comes from the sea, and so I'm actually both. I feel that I lean more to being a saltwater woman. I'm currently living on Gadigal country where I've had lots of relationships, but my sense of belonging and my place is still home. I've worked in early childhood for 40 odd years, mainly in mainstream education, but always with a lens on what's happening with Aboriginal children and Torres Strait Islander more recently.
The most recent coming to meet Reggio Emilia was when Deb and I both got a scholarship to go there in 2018 on the study tour. With REAIE there were 2 Aboriginal scholarships and we happened to get them. We didn't know each other before then, but we did meet on the first day and we just clicked. And so we instantly kind of knew that there was going to be an ongoing kind of connection between us and with Reggio and Aboriginal ways of knowing.
When I did get to Reggio, I did feel that I belonged and I felt really strong. And I think that's part of what I aligned with Reggio when I got over there. It reminded me that our babies and our connection to country, it comes through our spirit babies first. So we know that we have our way of knowing when the falling star's coming, that a baby's coming, those sorts of things. And everybody in the community is there. We don't have one mother or grandmother or auntie, we have multiples. That's what aligned it for me, that I saw that collaborative, collective way of working. It was the sense of community, of everybody in the community being behind the Reggio philosophy, ways of teaching and learning. There was this notion that there is not an expert that has all the knowledges, and that's very much aligned with us. We have clever people who can be babies, so we'll call those our grannies who are teaching us because we're learning from each other and with each other, and I think I saw that very distinctly. Often our people are considered to be not watching their children, not caring for them. What they're looking at is one parent who may be talking to someone else. What they're not seeing is that there's a whole community of eyes on those children. It's not one person's responsibility, that the whole community does it, and we don't understand that, and Reggio does walk the talk.
For me, it was when I lived in an Aboriginal community, remote Aboriginal community, and I had the privilege of being the other. And so if I wanted to communicate and connect, I had to listen. And to build relationships, I had to listen. And I had to put aside some of my ways of knowing. And that was fabulous because I learnt so much and really changed my perspective. I think I have a more empathetic view of Aboriginal culture. It's our history too, but it's not my knowledge. And so to have any of that knowledge shared with me, again, is a real privilege.
This is our knowledge. We do this well with our children. We actually don't need others to tell us how to do it. It would be great if people could just look at what we're doing and take some learnings from that. That support and that connection around family and children and looking out for each other is very strong. Grandmothers, everybody's involved. And in centres, in early childhood spaces, quite often it's not unusual to have a whole mob turn up with a child being enrolled, and that's quite confronting for other people because they try to talk to the mother, and when the grandmother intervenes they go back to the mother and they're not actually understanding that this is a community that's making the decisions here, not the mother, not the so it's a gain. Understand, not what you don't know, you can't, I suppose, put yourself in that position.
It's not about rushing, it's about actually participating in the experience. And I think that sense of when you're in a dialogue, giving that time so that you're actually there to listen, because it takes time to listen. You can't listen without time, otherwise you're just hearing Twitter and not hearing what people say. Giving the time to talking about things and seeking to understand how things work for children.
And I think that respect was a really big thing, that there was respect for with each other, adults, children, whoever, and also the strong respect for relationships in terms of when you are reframing something, that you actually listen to others deeply, as Penny was saying, not superficially, and think about perspectives that are not always your own, and look internally at yourself and go, how much of this is my need to think differently, and how much of it will I hang on to? You actually need to get out of your own comfort zone and put yourself out there. You have to put yourself on the line to actually really challenge your own beliefs and listen and take the time to build those strong relationships and actually step back. And I think that listening, I can't speak for every Aboriginal community or Torres Strait Islander community, that listening has to be grounded in the place of where the community comes from, not one community. We are communities, and that needs to be negotiated and driven locally.
One of the big impacts for me when I was living in community was the relationships that I was privileged, again, to form with two of the women there, Mackenty and Katrina. And after we went to the Reggio conference in Adelaide, we talked about the 100 Languages poem, and Katrina painted her response, and her words talked about how the first relationship is with the mother, and how they've known for years that there are many languages that children express themselves with, and she talks about language in the multiplicity of it. When we have language, we're strong in spirit.
I think that there was that many people, many languages, which resonates very much with community. So our languages are not always verbal, mostly, so our stories can be coming through lots of different ways, and we take time to do that, and we take time to talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it, with respect.
The synergy and the connection between the knowing about this, and yet in our Western education system, that hasn't always been there. And I think Reggio leading the way for that to present and be forward in our thinking is so congruent, and I think that's partly why the relationship between Australia and Reggio grows.
I think we have a responsibility to ensure that people do start to think differently about the processes and systems. Systems have killed us off. Let's not keep creating more systems to continue that.
I would hope that the message about listening goes beyond early childhood and permeates into the systems that Deb talks about, so that we can honestly say to Aboriginal Australia, oh yeah, we're there, we'll go forward with you.
And I think for me too, that political notion of you need to stand strong and you need to fight with words or with whatever you need to do, to say is we were the first teachers of our children. We were the first teachers in this country. And we have a way that works. It hasn't worked doing it from the dominant Western way of telling us how to do it. And again, it's looking at children from a different lens.
My perspective of absolutely being convinced about children's competencies and capabilities, and how our systems don't necessarily position us to be able to see that in Aboriginal children. That discourse of disadvantage that sits around Aboriginal children as learners, that is ingrained in us, needs to be disrupted so that we can actually genuinely see children as competent and capable, because they actually are.
We have a right to teach our children the way we have always taught them, and also to give them that space to navigate all the other new learnings that we don't have. The evidence is there, it works. We just need to listen and we need to follow what we know works best for our children.